Welcome to Sleep Baby. Today we're going to talk about traveling with a baby. There is a lot of mythology attached to traveling with a small baby. The truth is that there's no time in your child's life when traveling with her will be easier. There are only a few important things to keep in mind and your trip will go great. Most of the concern has to do with flying on airplanes. But if you're driving or taking the train or even the bus, people seem a whole lot less concerned. Although in truth, the concerns should be the same as air travel. I will detail these later in this presentation. How about traveling with a small baby? How young is too young? I get this question a lot from prospective parents. Most often, they are asking me because they know their baby is due right before they have to take a long flight for an important family event. I know I sound like I'm joking with the answer I give, but I'm not. I say, you can drive to the airport from the hospital when you're discharged if you have to. But what about her little immune system? The baby's immune system is a lot more robust than you think. For one thing, her immunity to most things came from mom across her placenta in the womb. You're going to be holding the baby in your lap the entire flight, protected from all the germy people around you. If you're nursing, even better. The immune system boosting properties of breast milk are well known. People ask me as well whether the baby should have any vaccinations prior to travel. The only infection that I know of that the baby could possibly be vaccinated against early in life that could be passed by a sick person on an airplane is whooping cough, or pertussis, and there's a very small risk of this. In any case, you'll be keeping the baby away from sick people. If you have the misfortune to be seated next to a person who is coughing, which is very unlikely, ask to be moved. Everyone will understand. What about her little ears? This is actually the number one concern that parents have about air travel. Happily, there's an easy way to manage it. Make sure the baby is sucking on something during takeoff and landing. The baby can nurse or take a bottle. If she can be swallowing, she's more likely to equalize the pressure between the cabin and her middle ear, so changes in pressure won't be a problem for you. Everybody is worried about the air in the aircraft cabin or her ears on takeoff and landing. My concern is the airport and the airplane. You see, thousands of people traipse through airports every day, substantial numbers of whom are sick. These sick people touch common surfaces such as the ticket counter or the armrests in the gate areas. Then if you touch the surface, then touch your baby, now it is as though the sick person has touched your baby. Obviously, you wouldn't permit strangers to touch your baby. Even playing with her toes is not okay. The same goes with traveling with a small baby through bus stations or restaurants where you might stop if you're driving. Look, you have to eat when you travel, right? When you're in an airport, designate a toucher. This will be the person tasked with touching the baby. The toucher should make a supreme effort not to touch anything that is not the baby. Have someone else touch all the potentially contaminated surfaces. And in public places like airports and airplanes, all surfaces are potentially contaminated. Bring hand sanitizer, lots of baby wipes, and use them all very frequently. Even if you do all this, stuff happens. Sanitize often. The TSA says your sanitizer container has to be no larger than 3 ounces. So please respect this, or they'll make you surrender your pump bottle at security. For readers who live in northern latitudes, warm climates are dream destinations for trips and vacations. But what happens when baby comes along? Is it okay to travel to hot places with a baby? Once you hear the answer, it'll sound obvious. Consider the millions of people who already live in hot places and produce offspring. The basics are identical all over the world, from Iceland to Ecuador. Should I give the baby water? The member of the family who needs more water is not the baby, but the mom, especially if she's breastfeeding. It's not recommended to give water to a baby who is less than 6 months old. Breastfeeding moms need to drink a lot more water than they do when they're not breastfeeding. It's important to remember that in hot places, you will be losing more water than you may realize from evaporation. I recommend drinking before you get thirsty, not a daiquiri, okay? Can I put sunscreen on my baby? Most experts say you should avoid putting sunscreen on a baby until she is 6 months old. There are chemicals in sunscreen that could be toxic if their level gets too high. Little babies are mostly skin compared to the volume of their bodies, so the theory goes that they are more likely than you to absorb too much. The best thing that you can do, even after 6 months, is to avoid direct sunlight. Keep the baby's skin covered and make sure she wears a big hat. If at all possible, baby's sunglasses would be an awesome idea, and she'll look adorable. The same goes for going in a pool or the ocean. She should be held in your arms at all times and be fully clothed. So, in summary, make sure mom and dad get enough sleep. Baby will get hers, but she needs you to be rested. Breastfeeding moms need to drink lots of extra water. No water for baby. Keep baby's skin covered and avoid direct sunlight. Baby travel is easy. Toddler travel is hard. There are logistical problems that arise when your little travel companion can walk and explore. It's easy for her to become overstimulated. And then there's that perfectly good sleep pattern you worked so hard to develop. Will it get screwed up when you and your bundle of sunshine hit the road on vacation? Here's a toddler on the road, literally. The first thing to consider is departure time. It's a good idea to leave at a time just before the toddler is going to go to sleep anyway. This works great for road trips. For air travel, the timing may be trickier. There's a lot more standing around and waiting. Best to plan for a flight that takes off at around normal bedtime. This is why so many parents of toddlers book overnight flights. Mom and dad might get some sleep as well. Well, maybe not. Remember when you made that road trip from Boston to Miami and you only stopped at gas stations? You'd fill up, yourself and the car, use the bathroom, buy more soda and junk food, and head off. Those days are gone. Driving with toddlers requires planning your stops, and gas stations won't do. It might be wise to find family and friends who won't mind hosting you for a night. No family or friends on the route? You might consider spending the extra money for a motel along the way. Toddlers just can't sit for 8 hours at a time. Worse, if they fall asleep for longer than is their normal nap interval, it could totally screw up bedtime when your toddler travel ends for the evening. Unlike infants, who you can keep in your lap or a car seat, toddlers are very difficult to keep from touching things at the airport. Airports are what I like to call essentially contaminated places. You can assume that most of the things your toddler touches during her explorations have already been touched by someone who is sick. Online for security or customs, this won't be so much of a problem. The toddler can stay in an umbrella stroller, which you'll be able to keep with you as a special accommodation. But at some point, she'll probably want to get out and walk. I'd carry her if you can, or toddle with her holding her hand, and use plenty of wipes and hand sanitizer. Hopefully something a little more comfortable than this. If your traveling 1-year-old has a ticketed seat, bring the car seat on board. A great tip is to ask for a blanket from a flight attendant. Take the blanket and place it under the car seat. Then take the other end of the blanket and tuck it into the pocket of the seat in front of the baby. This creates a sling and prevents toys and snacks from falling all the way to the floor. This keeps dropped toys and snacks cleaner and makes picking up dropped toys easier. When traveling with a 1-year-old child, you will be picking up lots of dropped toys. One expert tells clients that the barf bag makes a great hand puppet. But just be careful. I learned from bitter experience that the airline does not place fresh barf bags between flights. True story. Toys, toys, and more toys. This would be a good time to whip out the fancy new item that the little one hasn't seen before, or 2, or even 3. Anything to help her resist the temptation to get up and walk in the aisles. And don't forget that if she's in diapers, you'll need the changing pad in your diaper bag. Here is the toddler travel checklist. Pause the video and write these down. Remember, the TSA won't let you take liquids more than 3 ounces. We're going to talk more about the TSA a little later in the presentation. Changing pad, toys and other distractions, patience, and a sense of humor. Several of my brave clients take their babies on truly long trips. I mean several time zones. I've known families to fly with their little children to India, the Far East, and Africa. From these families, I've learned the best tips I can find to overcome baby jet lag. This is Mont Saint-Michel in Normandy, France. Baby jet lag is just like adult jet lag, only your little one sleeps more than you do, so it probably won't be as tough on them as it is on you. The local clock says it's 9 in the morning, but you feel like it's time to go to bed. Same with the little one. There's simply no way to avoid it. Baby jet lag will probably last a minimum of 3 days, up to 14 days, depending on how many time zones you cross. But there are ways you can reduce the shock to the system. One website has some great tips on managing jet lag for the little ones. One of the best ones is choosing a night flight. It turns out that if you choose a flight time when everyone will be sleeping, make that should be sleeping, it will work out best. This is the beach in Tel Aviv, Israel, looking towards Jaffa, where Jonah stowed away on a boat headed for Tarshish. Most experts agree that the best way to adjust to a new time zone is to allow our eyes to train our brains to adjust to our circadian rhythm. Simply put, let daytime be light and let nighttime be dark. Our eyes train our brains to secrete melatonin at night, so we'll get sleepy when it gets dark. This is one of those occasions when I recommend breaking my rule about letting a sleepy child sleep. For the sake of making most of the trip or vacation more pleasant, it may be necessary to wake her up in the local time morning. Then, it's a good idea to take the child out during the day and encourage her to stay awake. The opposite goes for nighttime. Though she may be wide awake and wanting to play, I recommend keeping her room dark, quiet, and relatively free of activity. This is that poor sleep substitute that I call downtime. It's better than nothing. As for naps, to the greatest extent possible, try to time these according to local time, and good luck. By the way, this is Bruges in Belgium. Most seasoned travelers recommend meal times at local times. That means if it's time to eat breakfast in Tokyo, eat breakfast. In a perfect world, you would start doing this on the plane, but the reality is that you eat when they feed you. Of course, you've brought plenty of healthy snacks with you, right? Speaking of healthy snacks, when you and your child are up in the wee hours of the morning because you haven't adjusted your circadian rhythms yet, someone's liable to get hungry. I'd keep it healthy and proteinaceous. Sugar not so much. It'll help, I promise. Nothing wears the crew out more effectively than lots of physical exertion. This is not always the easiest thing to do, depending on your location. It may come down to going outside and walking, temperature and weather permitting. Along with meals at the usual times and sleep at local time, this is the best way to restore some normalcy. And finally, remember you're going to have to do all of this in reverse when you return. Since September 11, 2001, travel by air has become much more complicated than it used to be. If you're traveling with an infant or small child, it's become even trickier. The TSA has its own rules, and each airline has particular rules as well. It's imperative that you know this stuff before you fly. Here are some TSA traveling tips that hopefully will make your trip smooth and uneventful. That's not carry-on luggage, just saying. When buying your ticket, make sure you know whether you have to buy one for your infant or toddler. If she occupies her own seat, she'll obviously need her own ticket. But if she'll be sitting in your lap, some airlines will permit you to fly two for the price of one. Now, if you're not going to be buying a ticket for the baby, the airline is going to want to verify the baby's identity somehow. These rules vary by airline, especially if you're flying internationally. If you'll be traveling to another country, the baby will need a passport. What is okay to carry on? There's a great deal of confusion about this issue, or there was in the beginning. But the TSA has taken pains to make the rules about baby stuff clear and concise. Formula, breast milk, and juice are now exempt from the 3-ounce rule that holds for other liquids and aerosols. Not that you'll be packing juice, right? So go ahead and pump as much as you can and fill those bottles. Ice packs and baby food jars are also allowed in carry-on bags. You have to tell the security agent you're carrying these items in your bag. They'll have to go through the X-ray scanner. Do not worry about this. X-rays will not harm breast milk, formula, or anything that the baby will be eating or drinking. Will they pat down the baby? Yes, they can if they want to. The picture 2 slides back shows TSA agents in Kansas City, Missouri, patting down an infant after her stroller set off an alarm for explosives. That incident got some press, but the TSA did not apologize, and procedures have not changed. The agency maintains that they can pat down any child, although children under 12 get to keep their shoes on. Infants and toddlers in strollers can be carried through the scanner in the caregiver's arms. 7 things you should bring. It turns out that people travel a lot, and that's a good thing, I suppose. But travel with a baby or a small child means a bunch of logistical problems that can magnify the cost of your trip. In terms of keeping the little one happy, the biggest consideration is going to be how well he or she sleeps. All 7 of these things you need to bring with you will help the baby sleep directly or indirectly. If at all possible, bring one of these. Ideally, it should be a place the baby is already used to sleeping in, or at least napping in. These portable cribs have a way of giving the child the illusion of sleeping in her usual space, and this can solve a multitude of sleep problems. They fold up and don't occupy a ton of space. Again, it would be ideal if these were the ones the baby is used to sleeping with. If any of these blanket type things functions as a transitional object for the baby, even better. Don't make the mistake we made when we flew back from Florida in February with a 9-month-old. By the time we got to Boston, the Terminator had thrown up so many times he was wearing only a t-shirt when we arrived home. Plan ahead, folks. Prepare for travel sickness. This is something most travelers just don't think about. They're not for the baby necessarily, although most nurseries have one. The nightlight is for you. You'll be trying to navigate your way to the child in the dark in a strange place. You will not regret bringing a nightlight. Not this kind of bouncer. That's what I'm talking about. In case the portable crib idea doesn't work for a baby to sleep in, you'll need a backup plan for a sleeping place. It's also great for naps. Again, ideally, it should be a place that the baby already likes to nap or sleep in. I prefer the kind that removes from the base and becomes a carrier. If your baby sleeps in it, it's ideal for travel. You can even take these on a plane, provided you've purchased the seat in which you plan to strap the car seat in. Finally, an indispensable item for getting the baby to nap on a trip. These are small and very lightweight. If you can't get the baby to nap because of all of the disruptions of being in a strange place, the umbrella stroller is the way to go. Be brave, be strong. You're going to have a great trip. One I'm sure you'll always remember, even if your little ones don't. Thank you for watching and listening. Be sure to visit Sleep Baby at essentiallyhealthychild.com and sign up for our free email course. There's lots of information and offers that I'm sure you'll learn from. Peace, love, and sleep, people.